Movies are getting worse, or at least that's where you hear everywhere, right? People say this all the time, and honestly, it kind of makes sense why it's happening. Sure, you have some movies that critics are hating on that is actually a decent film, but a lot of the films that were released aren't really that good. So I just kind of want to go through the ones that came out this year that I saw and kind of give my opinions on it. I'm looking at a tier list right now, and I probably won't show it because I haven't seen most of these. I just kind of want to talk about my thoughts on these movies. There will be no spoilers throughout this entire thing, but in case you don't want to hear my opinion and you want to go in unbiased when you watch it, that's totally fine. There will probably be something in the pinned comments or description. So first of all, I gotta get this out of the way. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was one of the better experiences I've ever had this year. It was really good. The storytelling was amazing, and the end comes kind of sudden. I'm not gonna say what it is, but I remember sitting there thinking, "Oh no, I'm fine. I could sit here for another hour and a half for this." Honestly, fantastic storytelling, art style. I feel like a lot was left unanswered, because it's a setup for the next film, which is going to be called Beyond the Spider-Verse, but it feels like they didn't really know there was going to be a sequel at the time of making it. But honestly, that is definitely one of the better ones. We talked earlier about critics hating on movies that didn't all deserve the hate and that people fairly liked, and the biggest example you'll see of this is the Mario Bros. Movie. Honestly, I liked it. It was fairly good. They didn't use Gusty Garden Galaxy until the end credits, which is a completely missed opportunity. That is the best song in the entire Mario franchise. If I remember, it will be playing in the background right now. But it was a very good film. The ending was very sudden, though. It was this big climax, and as soon as the climax is resolved, it immediately ends in a minute. I'm going to say that a lot because looking at this list now, a lot of films do that. But there should have been more of an ending to it. Other than that, it was a pretty good film. Speaking of things that people hate on, Elemental really surprised me, and I mean that. The marketing was terrible for Elemental, and I was not excited to see it at all. I honestly was just doing it because, I guess so. But I honestly enjoyed Elemental. It was a very good film. It was just fun. It was the same as the Mario Bros. Movie. It didn't really have the ending problem, though. It had a fairly decent ending. The only problem was there was this big climax that they stopped or delayed, and it didn't come back until a good 40 minutes later. Pixar, you don't have to have a giant climax. If you want to make a romance movie, you can just do it. The climax was very shoved into your face and then taken away. The wall that they filled with glass and then the glass broke, that's all I'm going to say. That was kind of weird. Probably on the same tier, if not a little worse, maybe. Speaking of films that surprised me, Barbie also kind of surprised me because the only marketing for this film I saw was mobile game ads and then the very first ad, which is just the very first scene in the film, and it makes 0 sense. So I didn't really see any of these commercials, and I wasn't really going to see the film at all, but people were hyping it up. They said it was a really good film after seeing it. So I went, oh yeah, I gotta see this if it's this good. And honestly, it wasn't the best film, but it was still fairly decent. I thought the storytelling was great. The message they were trying to get across was great. I didn't like the teenage girl. She had that unlikable teenage stereotype, and then her character development, like all teenage stereotypes portrayed in films, just come out of nowhere. I honestly missed the turning point to where she becomes loving, I guess. I don't even know what to say about that. It's so annoying whenever they use the teenage stereotype of, oh, I hate everything, I'm mean, I don't care about anything that's going on. And this one is no exception. I thought the storytelling was awesome. I honestly wasn't expecting it. I will say the sense of humor was that sometimes adult and then sometimes very childish, so you couldn't really tell who the audience, the target demographic was supposed to be for. But other than that, I thought it was a fairly decent film. It was very good. Probably on the same tier as the Mario movie, if not better. Alright, let's talk about the Marvel movies. Let's be honest. Before the whole streaming side of things, films would have a year in between them. Infinity War and Endgame were almost an entire year apart, so there was that entire anticipation waiting for it. But now there's so much you can't even keep up, and even if you did, I personally don't want to. They're telling the same story across a year, but the only difference is you have to sit through more content of it. And Quantumania was pretty bad, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't really understand what was going on. There was the ants, and then they experienced 1,000 years or something. I honestly don't know what was going on, and they're telling the same story over and over again. This one was a little different, but Every Marvel movie now is just, oh, guys, I have an idea. What about if multiverse? And if multiverse, and there's this guy from the multiverse, let's have this guy from the multiverse, and then he's from the multiverse. And it's so hard to keep up with, and I just don't want to keep up with it. It is so annoying. Quantumania, probably one of the worst ones I've seen. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, though, that kind of surprised me. It was focusing on the characters rather than the overall Marvel plot, and I quite liked it. It was very dark, sure, but it did focus on the development, except for Quill, which they kind of just dropped very quickly. He's trying to get over Gamora. The whole time is just kind of being seen as a joke, rather than an actual plot point. But other than that, it was a fairly good film. Okay, I'm not even seeing it on this list, but I know I watched the Flash film. That one was alright. People were... Oh, I found it on the list. People were hyping it up like this was one of the best movies ever, and honestly, it just wasn't. It was an okay film. I feel like really some of the actors that were there just didn't want to be there. And they had this whole linear plot. You could see where it was going the whole time. And then all of a sudden, there's a twist. And then the film ends 2 minutes later. And you're kind of left wanting more. Yeah, I just didn't really know what to think after that. The sense of humor was not really that good at all. It was really only a 12-year-old boy would laugh at that. But other than that, I did kind of like the characters of it and the overall backstory and message they were trying to get across. But definitely better than Quantumania. Alright, the last two films on this list that I have actually seen is Dungeons & Dragons, which was amazing. I already love Dungeons & Dragons. It's a fairly awesome game to play. And the movie was, honestly, I didn't know what to expect when going into it. You know, D&D, you just kind of shape your own world, and it didn't really make sense how they were going to shape their own, but also keeping the Dungeons & Dragons kind of name on it, but they did it very well, and it was awesome storytelling, awesome characters. It was hilarious. I just loved the film. Honestly, I think you should go watch this film, even if you don't play Dungeons & Dragons. It is a fairly awesome film. Dare I say, even up there with Spider-Verse. The last one on this list, I saw Shazam. That one was good. I don't really have anything bad to say about it, but I don't really have anything good to say about it. It was very dark at some points. You know, you didn't have to do that to the teacher. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Other than that, Shazam was okay. Probably up there with Flash. And besides that, I don't think I've seen any other films that came out this year. So I think that's going to be about that. If I do want to talk about if movies are getting worse or better, one of the most common arguments for people who are defending this is that people are expecting too much out of films, but I'm looking to be inspired and looking for great characters and storytelling. And when you just have a glass wall that doesn't break until the very end of the film, it just kind of leaves me wanting for more. The whole message of the ending of She-Hulk was that not every climax of a show had to be this big fight. It could just be her life. But she didn't have to go out of her way and say it and break the fourth wall. I'm not going to say what happens, but it's pretty bad, and I honestly did not like the show. You don't have to go out of your way and say a message in the worst ways possible and just kind of throw the message in your face. You have to show the message with growth and character development, and I think that's the best way to do it. A lot of these films that I put at the top do that with Spider-Man, and Barbie did that as well. These are just my opinions, so let me know what you think if you enjoyed any of these. I'll probably put up the tier list that I have right now. I think that's going to be it, though. See ya.